Honestly, knowing now that Hunter grabbed a knife as he was walking through the house the first time makes me think he's the only one that maybe actually listened. Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. Disclaimer. Everything stated in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. And just like everything else in these cases we discuss here on this channel, everything is alleged. Hunter and the kitchen knife. So many people have been asking me my thoughts on that ever since the document came out. Now, again, this is one of those pieces of information that for some reason they felt like we didn't need to know. And I mean, I can say for some reason because in all reality, that's not supposed to have anything to do with the crime itself. But it's still interesting because there's so much about what actually happened right before that 911 call and during the 911 call that even now that we have all of this new information, the call itself, the transcripts, more information about that 8-hour gap when it comes to what Dylan and Bethany were doing, there's still just so many questions. So many questions. And the biggest one has been one of the most disappointing situations because the family responsible for this one, they are not taking any responsibility for the fact that this story started in the first place. When they're asked about it, Mr. Alpha just skirts right past it, tries to switch the subject, puts the blame on everybody else, and just changes everything. No responsibility, no acknowledgement, just playing victim about the whole thing whenever they're the ones who started it. Now, if you don't know what I mean, most people here listening to this do. This all is about the fact that the Consolves family came out over 2 years ago and were telling people that Xana's door was closed. That Dylan and Bethany could not get Xana's door open that morning, and for some reason, instead of going upstairs and getting the help of Maddie and Kaylee, they called Hunter Johnson specifically to come over and get the door open like a man. Get the door open because the two little girls were just too weak to do it, but never went and got help from the girls upstairs. That was always one of the weirdest parts about that whole story. And the story continued to be that he got there, he got the door open just enough to look inside and discover what had actually happened. He yelled for them to get the F out, call 911, and that's whenever 911 was called on one of the girls' phones. That's the story that has been going around now for over 2 years that was started by the Consolves family. Now, all of this time later, we not only have the 911 call, but we have information and details for things that were happening around the 911 call, things that we cannot visually see and things that we cannot audibly hear whenever we are just listening to the call itself. And one of those things, according to Judge Hippler and an order that he ended up putting out here, the first time that Hunter walked through the house with Dylan to see what was going on, he grabbed a knife out of the kitchen. A lot of people are asking why they hadn't told us that. I agree. Interesting that, the details of something that's supposed to not have anything to do with the crime, that could just get rid of a whole bunch of chaos, they're refusing to be completely transparent about, and even whenever they do, it just leads to a whole bunch more questions because they're not clarifying other things. Again, I say all the time that they like this chaos. They definitely know how to use it to their advantage. But what we're being told is that Dylan called Emily. Dylan didn't call big old man, muscly, strong boy Hunter over because a door needed to be manhandled open. She called a friend because she was apparently still scared and didn't know what the hell was going on 8 hours later. That friend brought her boyfriend with her, okay? Then she, the friend, Emily, stayed outside and according to the documents and according to Ann Taylor, only went up to the top step of the first flight of stairs, so she was just barely at the second floor, never actually approached the floor, just instantly ended up turning around and going back outside and never, ever, ever, according to what they're telling us, re-entered the home. It was Hunter that went into the house with Dylan. He grabbed a kitchen knife before he went to go walk towards Xana's door, but before he even got close enough, because the door was open, Dylan, for the second time, sees Xana on the floor. Hunter sees Xana. They then go outside, and there goes the 911 call. But then what happens whenever we listen to the 911 call? All of the things that we've been being told happened before the 911 call are happening during the 911 call. So now, instead of just thinking that there was just one time that they walked into the house, had to hurry up and get the door open to see what was wrong, discovered the scene, ran outside, called the cops, never went back in. No, that's not the case at all. Hunter and Dylan, I think Bethany as well, went into the house that first time. I could be wrong on the Bethany thing. Again, obviously, I'm in my garage. I'm not over there. I'll have the document next to my face as I'm, talking about this so that it has the exact wording right here next to me. But for sure, Dylan and Hunter walked in there. He grabbed the knife. Then everybody went out. And then the 911 call was made. And then the 911 call operator is telling them they have to make sure, they have to go and check. So then we hear them go back inside. And that's where we hear Hunter saying Xana's name. I think he says Ethan's name too. For sure he says Xana's name. And then we hear then, get out, get out, get out, get out. Before we then hear him on the phone with the operator. So he ends up actually going in the house at least twice to go just to Xana's room. So it's not until after the police get there that Maddie and Kaylee, discovered to also be an issue. But through all of this, no one's even mentioning Maddie and Kaylee on the 911 call. No one's apparently talking about that whenever they're discussing the situation, because whenever Emily or whoever the person actually is that gets on the 911 call, that's not one of the roommates, because at first we thought it was Emily, but then the documents are now saying some unknown female. So a lot of people are thinking it might just be some other female neighbor that lives nearby, because now, people are showing up and maybe people are screaming and crying and yelling and maybe people are starting to come outside. We honestly don't know. For some reason, they're still being really secretive about that. But the only thing that they're focusing on is Xana and alcohol poisoning possibility. There's nothing about Maddie and Kaylee, again, being reiterated to the 911 call operator from this other person who was told the story for why they needed to be over there in the first place from Dylan, if this is actually Emily. But regardless of that, this person is still only focusing on Xana, alcohol, drank too much, nothing else. So then whenever I hear Hunter grabbed a knife out the kitchen, in the most innocent of terms, sounds like he's the only one that listened. Because the person on the 911 call, as an afterthought, says, oh, and by the way, there was a guy in their house last night, or there was a person wearing all black or whatever in their house last night, however the frick she ended up putting it, okay? But it's an afterthought. Xana and alcohol is the first thing that they're worried about. The intruder, no big deal. Hunter seems to have been the only one to really maybe hone in on the most important part here. Just saying. Now again, whenever Hunter gets on the 911 call, there's a lot of places that are very quieted. Like they took out his words the same way that they did whenever Bethany was giving the operator her phone number. So he might have been giving a pretty graphic description about what he actually saw in that. And I've mentioned this before. I feel like Dylan, for sure, and I'm just going to say Bethany too, because at this point they are both very fully aware of the situation, okay? Both of them, after 8 hours of being scared that somebody was in the house, of Dylan seeing Xana on the floor in that exact same time frame, thinking that she was passed out from alcohol and no one giving a shit for 8 hours to go check on her, all of these things that are actually happening, they decide to not check. They decide to not take the initiative. Instead, they call another girl over to do what? To discover the situation that you already knew happened because you knew about it 8 hours prior. So here comes somebody else taking the weight of that responsibility. Now here comes the closed door situation. And now we have the Consolves coming out and not taking any responsibility for the fact that they probably got Hunter's story wrong. Because just like in the live, you know what? I'll just go ahead and replay it.
The story that
Here comes the door.
the surviving roommates tell in these documents is that they actually saw Xana. They saw her lying down in her room. So the door had to have been
Dylan
open.
did.
All this time, we've all been imagining that Xana and Ethan were behind a locked door, and that's why no one could get to them, and thought,
We weren't imagining it. We were told that by Mr. Alpha here.
but there must be something wrong. We'll call 911. Was this a surprise to you to hear this detail?
Yeah. I actually talked to Hunter a little bit back very beginning.
Put the blame on
I
Hunter.
remember him saying something about the doors, and I, not knowing the details, thought he was speaking of the outside door.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't, because you're about to say you're talking about the doors being open. Your story about Hunter is that the door was shut. See how he just like right past that shit? Yeah, I talked to Hunter for a minute. Da, 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 da. You see that?
So now, now looking back, I said, oh, the door being open, he was referring to the bedroom door, not
See? Oh, the door being open. He was referring to the bedroom door. She didn't ask you about a door being open, Steve. She asked you about a door being closed. And see, he does pretty much the same thing over on Daniel's channel. And it makes me so frustrated because Daniel is the one who came out and reiterated the story that Christy told him about the door and Hunter. Because remember, Christy had to come out and be like, yes, I told him everything. I really did an interview with him. Those are all the details that I gave him. Yes. Remember? Where's the responsibility? The door being open or the door being closed changes so many things. It also led us to, holy shit, Dylan saw her. So it goes away from thinking that something might have been wrong and not calling 911 because you're scared of the person in the house doing something to you. But for her to sit there and admit that she thought that she was just on the floor from alcohol, and you still waited 8 hours to even give a shit about your so-say friend? And either story, either direction, I'm supposed to feel sympathy for them. I'm sorry. On what planet, in what reality would I feel sorry for somebody that has that kind of mindset to just not give a shit? No, 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 and no once more. No.
that outside door, because there was reports of the outside door being open.
That's not what she
And I was like, okay, so that's true. That's how you can get things wrong. Somebody tells you the door's open, you assume it's the front door, and it was actually the bedroom door.
That's not at all the question.
So, yeah, we try to stay away from anything, but that was new information. That was,
He can't even take responsibility and he's just blaming it on. That's why I say I feel like Hunter's gotten like the like just the brunt of a lot of bullshit. I feel like again that Dylan and Bethany call people over so that they can have the weight of the discovery on them. And now here comes this story that is now the complete opposite of what they are the one that what they told us, and they still are refusing to take the responsibility, and instead are flipping it on Hunter and then switching it to, oh, outside and open instead of inside and closed because he doesn't want to actually admit anything. It's just wild to me. You see how he completely went around the question? He says something about talking to Hunter, and then it goes to an outside door being open, and he never comes back to it. That door being opened or closed changes so much for the way that this actually could have went down, especially knowing now that Dylan saw Xana. That door was open. So then why, on top of the door being closed, was the entire narrative about Ethan's body being behind the door and blocking it from being able to be opened also brought into this narrative? Because that was part of the story. It wasn't just, oh, the door was shut and locked for some reason and they just couldn't get it open. No, no, no. The whole thing was that Ethan was on the floor behind the door, and after 8 hours, his body had gotten into a position in a state of decomposition at this point to where they could not get the door open with his body blocking it. So that left open, was he possibly alive after he had been attacked? And maybe the killer is the one who shut the door, and Ethan was trying to get help by going up to the door to try to open it, and he couldn't, and that's where he just ended up succumbing to all of his injuries, because that story came from the Consolves. Why? Why all of this extra? Why all of this non-truth? The facts are coming out. He says so himself. Steve Consolves says so himself. So why can't he just admit that there is a problem? Why can't he just admit that they actually got something wrong instead of putting all the weight still on Hunter? Because he's not even trying to take responsibility. He said, yeah, we talked to Hunter, oh, well, the door was actually open on the outside. No one was talking about that. Every time he's been asked this question, he skirts all the way around it. He will take no responsibility, and it's just really gross. Again, I just feel like it's a sign that he was listening to the right part of the conversation. I feel like he was paying attention to the fact that somebody might have been in the house the night before, and he was just taking a precaution. I don't feel like there's anything nefarious about it, but other people feel differently. So again, let me know what you guys are thinking about this down in the comments. If you like the way that I present this information and give my opinion, please don't forget to leave a like on the way out. Subscribe to the channel if you were not subscribed already. And please don't forget to make sure that that notification bell is set to all so you don't miss any of my rants, reviews, reactions, updates, or deep dives. See y'all.